Hello everyone, welcome back to another session. This will be the last lecture, the lecture note, logical function, nested if function part 2. Now in the previous videos we talked about 3 output or more, 1 logical condition. We said we use nested if. The way that we use nested if, whether to change the value of true, value of false, or both of them according to the conditions that we had there. Now for today we will be talking about 2 or more logical tests, and we know that when the logical conditions became 2 or more, we have to use and or function. So those still we have nested if. Remember the nested if because we have 3 or more output, and the and or due to the logical test we have it. Now I hope by now you know what do I mean by 2 or more logical tests. I'm always seeing students confusing between when I say 2 or more logical tests. This does not mean that I have 3 logic. This does not mean that I have 3 logical tests. No. I mean, yes, those are 3 logical, but it does not mean 3 or more. Like, remember in the previous lectures, those are 3 logics, but we don't call this one. When we say 2 or more logical tests, it does not mean this, because we're going to use one in each if, and that's going to be alright. But when we want to use one of them, it has 2 parts. That's what we mean by 2 or more logical tests. As you can see it from this example here, if I look at this one, okay, I call this one logic, but it has 2 parts. It has 2 parts. X to be smaller than 0 or x to be greater than 20. So this is 2 logic for 1. How it makes sense that when you say 2 logic, I mean both of them are allowed for this one. For example here, x to be greater than 10 at the same time and smaller than 20. So there is 2 condition to be true, then I'm allowed to use this function here. Or for this one as well, x to be greater equal to 0 and x to be smaller and equal to 10, then we are allowed to use this function. So we call those 2 part or 2 logics that I have to check before using this function. Remember in the previous one, because I'm seeing students that they mixing when they counting the logics. For this one, this is only 1 logic. If I want to check this one, I'm only checking one thing in order to go to this part here. So I don't need and or. For example, I'm checking this one, this is alone 1 logic, x smaller than 0, and I will use x squared. So I don't need and or. But in meantime, for this condition I have it here, in order to go to x squared, I have to check x to be smaller than 0, x to be greater than 20. 2 of them, so or it's here, x smaller than or x greater than 20 in order to go to here. So that's why we need or function, and for those we need and function. Remember, the way that you're reading it in a mathematical way, sometimes it can help you to understand which one is going to be used. For example here, x to be greater than 10 and to be smaller equal to 20. So using and to read this condition here. So when it comes to if function, we have 3 outputs, 2 if function the same way. Number of if function needed equal to number of output minus 1. We already know this one. So I have 3 outputs here. I mean, y can be any of those 3. So there is 3 possibility for y. So I need 2 if function to solve this problem. But for the logics here, for the logic, any of the logic I'm taking it here, I might need and or function. It depends on the logic that we have there. Now, we said that the easiest way for the beginners, I hope by now you understand how to do these things, but believe me, try practicing with the flowchart will help you to realize how the values basically flowing through the flowchart. That's what we call flowchart, is basically flowing the numbers. For example, if there's something, the if contain a logic here, and this logic true, I may come here. If not, I'll come here. Remember, two if required. So for me, I will start with I will try to do this one. I always try to create it because it's easier to create the flowchart. Then I can convert this flowchart to an Excel function. We'll be able to see how does it work. I believe I don't need this one here. Anyway, we'll be solving more examples because I want to finish the lecture notes here. Two simple examples here. We're going to solve a lot more example, complex one that related to civil engineering, to see how hard the things can get. Remember, when it comes to civil engineering, everything is if. If this is like this, you're going to use that one. If it is like this, you're going to use that one. So always if it's a part of the calculation that we have it there. Let me start. Now, let's say the condition I have it here. We're trying to remember, you have a lot of way to write that one. If else, or if else, or if this, the middle one else. So you have three way to write it. Which one you prefer, it doesn't matter. Remember, it's up to you when you're trying to write the if, which one you're going to use it. We said that we have three. Since we're using two if, one of them will be else. Sorry. So if I use if here, the last one will be else. So I don't need to use this one. Remember, this will be else. The else. So this will not be used in the conditions. We're gonna use those two if for this one, and the last one will be else. Or I can just shuffle the way that I want it. If else, or if else. It's up to you. If you understand the logics, which logic you wanted there, then you'll be able to understand which one you wanted there, or which one to give if, which one. So remember, which one is easier to understand the logic, use if for that one, leave the rest for the else there. So let's say going like this, if else. So if x smaller than 0 or x greater than 20, remember, you will not be able to write this one the way it is. You have to separate it, because if you remember the beginning, we said that a logic consists of three parts: something compared with something. So x compared with 0, x compared with 20. So when you're writing it down, let's start with this way. If, since it's already said that if, we said that all the ifs that we have it, there will come a function, a logic. Now we have two logic. I'm going to use OR function here. We said x to be smaller than 0, x to be greater than 20. So always with if, there is a logic comes. If x smaller than 0 or x greater than 20, that will be the logic I have it. If this is true, I know what will happen. So this is, if this is the true, this is the true. If this logic is true, we know if this is true, we have to have x squared. Y value will be equal to y. Remember, the idea of log x, sorry, will be x times x times x squared here. Now if this is not true, we know that we have two more cases, two more cases. So we're going to choose one more for the if, then the other one will be else. So we're going to put another if, and this time we'll use, let's say this one, x to be greater than 10 and x to be smaller or equal to 20. So when I read it, I will say and. Remember, this is between 10 and 20. There must be and, because a number can be between 10 and 20. It can be greater than 10, smaller than 20. But for this one, remember, I could not use and. Why? Because a number cannot be smaller than 0 and greater than 20. So you know the logic, it does not make sense even. So here, the logic here, if I use or, it does not make sense. Now let me tell you why. If I use or here, let's say I'm thinking of or, I need you to understand why or does not work here. If I use or, I have to write what? Or x greater than 20, sorry, x greater than 10. And the second part of the logic will be x smaller than equal to 20. Sorry, this is a bit, let's make 20 a bit nicer. Now, we know that in the OR function, if any of them true, the result will be true. We know this one. Now, take any number here, minus 5. Is minus 5 greater than 10? No, the first one is false, but minus 5, it's smaller than 20. So you realize that here every number will be part of this logic. Any number you're taking it. Any number take 10. 10 is not greater than 10, yes? So the first one is not true, but the second one, 10 is smaller than 20. Take 50. Any number that you're taking it, one of them will be true. Why? Because 50 is greater than 10, true. That's it, does not care about the second one. Because it's or, so always will be true. That's why you have to, before writing it, at least test the logic to see if it's working or not. I don't want a case like this. I don't want any number that if I choose one of them to be true. No, I want both of them to be true. Why? Because I want to check it between 10 and 20. That's why or does not work here. It must be and. Both of them must be true. Then we're going to take the number. That's why we have to use and for this purpose. Remember, if you understand how and or works, and if you, before typing it in Excel, type it somewhere and just try some numbers to see if it is working. Say minus 5, 200, to see if it is going to be acceptable by the condition that you have, then you know that it's okay. If not, just change it to and, or change the things that you have it there. Now we will write it in this case, since we know and is working here, will be and we set x to be greater than 10, same time x to be smaller, equal to 20. If both true, then we know that there will be a true value, otherwise this will be false value. So false value, we have it. So if you have it, if this condition is true, we know that the result will be 1 over x here. The result will be 1 over x. Now if this is not true, and the first one is not true, so it means that will be the last one. So remember, the false of the false is the else. So the false of the false will be else, which is the last one, root x. So this will be 1 over x, and if this is not true, which is the first one was also not true, so remember this is the false of the false, and that will be the else for us, which is the last case. If a number it's not here, if it's not here, will be the last one, what will be the square root we have equation here. To write it out, I can just write SQRT. I'll leave it. The symbol. So we're going to write SQRT, which is the square root. Then we can go and change this one, convert this one to an Excel. Let's write SQRT, the way that we're writing it. SQRT of x, and that will be the the flowchart they have it. Now remember we said how do we start number, like first if, then the logic of it, then the true value, then we're gonna go for the false. The false start with another if, so I'm writing the if. Then when if start, always there will be a parenthesis, then the logic comes after the logics. We go for the true value, then we go for the false value. So there is 7 content I have it, 7 content, or basically 7 part we're writing it. Now we said that some of them will be the parenthesis. Let's start with the parenthesis. The first if we start, there will be a parenthesis opening here. Remember the or parenthesis must be closed after or. I've seen students they will leave the or function parenthesis and they will leave it and everything will be wrong. Why? Because anything that comes if you don't close the parenthesis for the or will be considered as the inside or. So you have to close the or function, then you're gonna go for the true value. Now we're gonna go for the false value. The false value started with another if, so I have to open another parenthesis. So this parenthesis for the second if I have it here. For the second if I have it here. Now after writing the logic and has a parenthesis, but remember this parenthesis will close after the logic finished there. Pay attention please, those parentheses closing are very important. If you don't close it, everything will be wrong. Now we're gonna go for the true value. Then if the true value finished, we're going to go for the false value. We said that when we wrote a false value, it's time to close the parenthesis. Remember, the first parenthesis will be closed is for this one. Why? Because this is the open parenthesis right now for the if, so this will be the closed parenthesis. Now we said that when we finish this part here, all of it is the false value for the first if, so the first if parenthesis will be closed as well here. Because all of this, it's a false value for the first if. We have the true value, and complete here it is the false value for the first if. Then we can go to Excel, and in Excel we can write this one to see, by the way, how can we manage this one. At least I'm looking at there to see if I'll be able to convert it to an if function in the Excel there. Now let's say we have an x value, we have a y value. We can write an equation for y value is equal to if the logical test or, so I'm directly, look, when I open if, there are parentheses. So I start or, double click on or, there will be a parenthesis. The logic one, it's x to be smaller than 0, then x to be greater than 20, x to be greater than 20. Then it's time to close the or parenthesis. Why? Because the logic finished here. So I'm closing the parenthesis for or. Then if you imagine, look, if you see the active function here, it's or, yes. Why? Because I haven't closed the parenthesis. As soon as I close the parenthesis, the active function will be if. This is the logical test. Then I'm gonna go for, when after writing the logics, so you go for the true value. So I have to put a semicolon or comma. Then value of true is active. Value of true will be x squared, which is x. I can write it to power 2 or x times 2. It's up to you. Then I'm gonna go for the value false. Value false, which is the false value. I have another if, so I'm starting with another if there. Another if. Double click on the if, the parenthesis will be open. The logical test, I have and. Why? Because 2 of them will be written. I have to write and function. Double click on the and. Now I'm inside and function. The and function is active. Then we're writing x to be greater than 10. X greater than 10. Then x to be smaller equal to 20. Sorry, x smaller equal to 20. I wrote x, which is wrong, must be a cell. X smaller equal to 20. Now it's time to close the and parenthesis. Why? Because the logic finished. As soon as you close, the second if will be active. It says that you wrote the logical function. It's time to go for the value of true. Yes, value of true, it's this one, because we said always after the logic we're going to go for the value of true. 1 over x, 1 over x here. Then if this is finished, we're going to go for the false value. The false value here is sqrt, the square root of x. Remember, closing the parenthesis first for the x square root. Why? Because square root has a parenthesis as well. Now, look, you are in the if function. This is the false value. Remember, we said check it. You have a logic, you have a value of true, value of false. It's time to close the parenthesis. Remember, you wrote them correctly. This is value of true, value of false. Then time to close the parenthesis. You close the parenthesis, it will bring you back to inside the first if. It is you have a logic function, you have a value of true, and there's a value of false. Yes, complete. The second if completely is the false value for the first one. Now it's time to close the first parenthesis as well for the first, or the first if parenthesis at the end, and hit enter. Now let's try to see if the value is, now before trying it, let's say if x is equal to, now if x is equal to, let's say, -5. Now it comes here, if x smaller than 0, yes, true, so it's gonna go here. This is the way it goes. It's supposed to be x squared. So if I write -5, the result must be 25. -5, the result became 25. Let's check something else. This is how you know that if your function is working or not. Let's say I'm trying x to be 50. Now, x smaller than 0? No. X greater than 20? Yes. So x greater than 20, it's true. Since it's or 1 true, it's gonna come here. Still will be there. It must be 50 square, 2,500. 2,500. So let's try something else. X to be 2. Let's say x to be 2. Now, x smaller than 0? No. X greater than 20? No. 2 false, it's going to be false. Even it's or, 2 false will be false. It's going to come here. Now, it's going to be the second if. X greater than 10? No. And we know that in the end, if one of them false, it does not matter, even the second one if true. X greater than 10? No. X smaller than 20? Yes. X smaller than 20. Look, the second one is true. The second one is true. But because we have and, it's not going to come here. Why? Because both of them must be true. Then it will come here. It will come here. Because x is not greater than 10. So it will be false. So it's going to come to this one here. And it will be square root. Now let's check to see actually it is. If x is 2, would it be root? X is 2. It's between 0 and 10. Will be root x. And we know that the logic I have it here, it's working. So I can simply try it here to see 2 will be root 2 will be 1.4142. And we know that it's working. Try something else. If x is 15. So remember, you must try to see that if the thing's working for every single condition, then you know that your if function is perfect. 15 is not here. It's not smaller than 0, not greater than 20, so not going here. It comes here. If x greater than 10, yes, it's greater than 10. X smaller than 20, yes, both of them true. Then it's going to come here, which will be 1 over x, 1 over 15. And we know it from the condition here, if x is between, 15 is between here, will be 1 over x. So if you try it here to see if it is working, so if I write 15, 1 over 15, I have to try it with calculator to see if it's getting the same number. This way we know that the if function works. So if you check the if function here, we have nested if, we have two if, and inside the if we have and or function. Why? Because the logic I had them, there were two logics to be true then, or one of them must be true, then we can follow the calculation. In these conditions we have to use and or for the logics there. I believe I'm going to make another video for the second question we have it, the grading system in a school. Just being explain this one, how does it work. Then we'll be having some more videos on those examples. Thanks for watching.